And welcome back to Shovick Sports Shit. I am Corey.
I am Austin.
Fantasy football time has arrived. It's that time of the year. Everyone's getting ready for their fantasy drafts. Ours is in what, like 8 weeks, something like that. But I know a lot of people are getting ready to kind of go rapid fire with some of theirs. I know a lot of mock drafts are going on. So we're going to talk some fantasy football today. We're going to talk about top 10 quarterbacks. First, we're going to get into Shovick Sports Hits. Starting off number 3, the, I guess, miracle season for the Royals continues. They get 4 All-Stars, 3 of them for the first time. Salvi, his 9th time. Bobby's in the home run derby. Any snubs from the Royals roster? Or do you like all 4 of those guys?
I think it's a good four. I don't think any bullpen arms were needed. I think Reagan's and Lugo were deserving. I think Sal and Bobby both deserve to be starters, but um, can't take away from what Bretschman and Gunnar Henderson are doing for Baltimore. So I think it was fair. I think it's good. No more, no less.
Yeah, and Lugo's obviously possibly kind of fighting for maybe being starting pitcher for the AL All-Star team. I know Scooble might have something to say about it. I guess it really all just comes down to when they pitch next and where it kind of lines up with the All-Star game. Um, I think if you look at big picture, Brady's numbers are All-Star worthy. I just don't think his pitching has been consistent throughout. Um, not compared to what like Reagan's and Lugo have been able to do this season. So if there was one snub, maybe Brady, but I'm happy with the 4 that are in. So that takes us to number 2 on the Shovick Sports Hits. Bobby Baseball competing in the home run derby. There's a pretty good field. Um, I don't remember. I think I saw Pete Alonso, Vladdy maybe, Gunnar Henderson, but Bobby's representing hometown. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a love hate with the home run derby. It's entertaining as shit, but it's something I've never really wanted uh, some of my favorite players to do. Uh, a lot of times it seems like a swing goes into a little bit of a funk after that. I mean, these dudes are a creature of habit. So even doing that for, even in an event, a lot of times it throws them into a funk a little bit. And the Royals aren't really in a position to have Bobby in any kind of a slump. Um, but it'll be fun. It's good for him, carry a kid competing in the home run derby, first All Star event. So it's good for him. Uh, it's always about the players, so I'm sure he's stoked, and that's really what matters.
Yeah, I'm still picking him to win. Obviously, I know the field's loaded with some good talent. Guys that have won home run derby in the past, but I still like Bob's chances. Um, yeah, I'm excited to watch. It actually gives us a reason maybe to pop on the home run derby, unlike years past. So we like that. And leading off, number 1, Big 12 Media Day started yesterday. KU talked today. It's football season. Now Media Day is over with. They're going to start getting after it to practice. Um, good stuff from Lance Leipold today. They had JD6 on. So if the season started tomorrow, he'd be in. I don't know. It's that preseason. I'm healthy. I mean, they're all supposed to say that, but uh, one quote that stood out to me today is they asked him if this roster could get him to Dallas for the Big 12 championship game, and very confidently he said yes. This is new to us. We're not used to this. So, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's one of those where a lot of people think that every coach right now, if you ask them, believes that they have enough to get to wherever a championship game is. Not really Leipold. He's made the goals very clear the last couple years, and it was progress. Never over setting the bar going into seasons. It's when he says it as confidently as he did, it makes you believe because he's been very realistic every step of the way on what to expect and what the realistic opportunities and aspirations are for the team. So if he confidently believes it, There's no reason we shouldn't.
No better chance than this year. And we previewed a little bit of KU's football season. We'll dive into more of their season opener here in a few weeks. Um, yeah, I mean, this if there was ever a time that it may be possible, it's this time. So we just kind of we're KU fans. We've been at the bottom. We know it's like watching terrible football. This is still somewhat new. KU fans, let's get ready for a bumpy ride. Hopefully, it ends with the Big 12 championship game and then the college football playoff. We got some honorable mentions for the Shovick Sports Hits. Those of you that are as excited as we are about NCAA 25 coming out, pre-order it. Get it pre-ordered so you can play it a couple days early, like we are. KU has 3 guys ranked in the 90 percentile or the 90 overalls. Kobe Bryant, corner. Devin Neal, running back. JD6, quarterback. Fair or too high?
I think that's fair. I mean, we're JD6 might be the only one you can kind of maybe question, simply because you're kind of going off what you think he'll be or what he was from a couple seasons ago. It kind of always blows my mind where sometimes these games will include players who haven't played for 2 or 3 years but still have them incredibly rated high. Um, I don't think it's absurd that he's in the 90s. Given his athletic abilities, that usually helps the quarterback ratings out. That's a deep dive for video games. But Devin Neal and Jacoby Bryant, I mean, those are 2 of the best players at their position in all of college football. So I'd be surprised if they weren't top 5 to 10, which usually includes being 90 overall or better.
Yeah, and I believe on this game there's not a 99 club, so I don't think they had anybody ranked 99 or rated 99. Could be wrong. I think it was just a small list that I was able to see. I know KU had one. They were on the list of the most top 100 players on NCAA 25. Georgia, I think, led the way with like 8. So I was not shocked on that. But KU was in a good group with 4 or 3, sorry. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to play the game. Uh, hopefully, it's way better than Madden. It's kind of gotten redundant. Um, so yeah, make sure you pre-order that game. You can play it 3 days early?
Yep.
3 days early. So I think that's actually next week. How about that? So today, breaking down top 10 fantasy quarterbacks. We use Yahoo. Um, yeah, it's top 10. What I said.
Yeah.
Top 10. Sorry. We use Yahoo for our fantasy sports. So this is based off Yahoo's top 10. Um, we'll read their top 10 and then we'll kind of give you our top 10 and kind of explain why we put them where we did or if we agreed with what they said. So starting with number 10 of your fantasy QBs per Yahoo, Dak Prescott, quarterback, Dallas Cowboys, of course. And I'm not going to get it. We'll just read it instead of just kind of saying if we agree or disagree with it right now. So number 9 is Jordan Love. Number 8 is Joe Burrow. 7 is Kyler Murray. 6, CJ Stroud. 5, Anthony Richardson. 4, Lamar Jackson. 3, Patrick Mahomes. 2, Jalen Hurts. 1, Josh Allen. Initial thoughts before we dive into our top 10. We'll see your top 10, but what's your initial thoughts on seeing this?
Yeah, I won't necessarily say if I agree with the positioning. My first thoughts when I saw the list, um, and it's fantasy football, so I mean it makes sense. But um, they're really valuing the dual threats. I don't know if you can sit and look at this list and say there's a single true pocket passer on this list. You know, Patty and Burrow try to be, uh, but we know Patty's better when he's on the move a little bit, not necessarily running, but moving. Yeah, the days of having high value pocket passers seems to be a thing in the past for Yahoo's projections.
Yeah, my thoughts are the top 4 are the usual. Like those are the consistent teams that are in the playoffs every year outside of fantasy. Um, a couple newcomers on there, and I'll get into who's too high and and whatnot. But I agree with you. Um, I think it is because it is fantasy football. They do take into consideration, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, total touchdowns, obviously with passing. Um,
Yeah, and I mean that's strictly the reason Anthony Richardson's 5. I mean, we've seen what 4 games of him, and he's still uh, in their top 5 on quarterbacks. So they expect high things from him if he stays on the field, which he's probably the biggest question mark on that list. But we'll get to that a little bit more.
yeah, and I think with him, I don't think he was necessarily like had a lot of throwing touchdowns when he was playing. I think he was hurt the first time on a rushing touchdown, got a touchdown at least. So fantasy people were like, "Hey," but yeah, I think to put him there, it's kind of questionable. Um, but we'll kind of see. I do like their offensive scheme and their offensive system and who they have, obviously with Jonathan Taylor. So we'll get in. Here's my top 10 fantasy QBs for me. This is still going based off of Yahoo. So I'll read them and we'll give you a plus or minus from where they were originally ranked. Some of these guys weren't even on the top 10, but we'll start with number 10. I had Jared Goff. That's up 3 spots from what Yahoo has them at. I'll read the list and then I'll kind of give you a breakdown. Number 9's Tua, 3 up from where he was at on Yahoo. Then number 8, I have Dak. Number 7, CJ Stroud. That's down 1. Jordan Love's +3, so up 3 spots. Number 5, I have Jalen Hurts, so that's down 3 spots. And then number 4, Lamar Jackson, same spot, number 4. Then I have Burrow at 3, that's +5. Josh Allen, number 2, that's down 1. And then Patrick Mahomes, obviously the number 1 quarterback. What's your thoughts on my list?
I like that it uh, doesn't really match Yahoo. Uh, Anyone who knows me, a bit of a fantasy lord. But with that being said, usually if you have the same thoughts as any of the sites, you're probably not going to do very good. So that's my first thought. My next one is it looks like you value the true quarterback over the dual threat, which makes sense. You're not putting yourself in harm's way as much. So, do you want a pocket passer for your whole season, or you risking having that dual threat for a game here or there, or miss a game here and there? So, I like how the end of your top 10 was more pure quarterbacks. Won't get dive too deep, but the end of your top 10 would typically how drafts would go, unless you're with a bunch of I don't want to say that word, just a bunch of idiots. I think Goff and Tua could be really good value picks towards the end since they're not the dual threat.
Yeah, so I'll start at number 10 with Jared Goff. I know it's up 3 spots. I love that offense. I think they throw the ball enough. He's got good weapons around him. I know he's a little bit of a risk just because turnovers can come for him. And then is this the year that they decide to get Gibbs more carries? Um, but I still like the passing aspect of it. I still think he's going to throw for a ton of yards. I like his touchdown total. Um, and then even with Tua, same thing. I love that offense. He fits it. This is going to be year 3 for him in the system. They'll start the season obviously with a healthy Tyreek, healthy Waddle, and then obviously the plethora of running backs that they have could be a reason he's not top 10. But the fact that they still air it out and the fact that he still has deep threat receivers, I like that part. And then we'll go number 1. Why did I move Patrick from 3 to 1? I hate this, but I think their offense is going to be significantly better than it was last year, just with the additions of Hollywood Brown. You get Worthy, and then you still have Rasheed Rice, suspension or no suspension. Who knows? Who cares? But for this, I think that offense is going to be significantly better. I think if he had receivers last year, first few weeks or throughout the whole season, his numbers would have been so much better. Taking the drops, the off the hands for interceptions, those hurt his numbers, right? I don't think he's going to have that issue this year, and that's kind of why I like his prospects of being at the number 1 spot.
Yeah, obviously as a Chiefs fan, that'd be pretty cool. I agree though that his numbers should be better. I don't know how much better. The 2 weapons you mentioned are still players he's never played with. Chemistry matters a little bit. That's why those Tyreek Travis and Patty days were huge. Um, but yeah, his numbers will improve. I just don't know if it's enough to get to number one. Because to me, they still didn't address the red zone threat. It's kind of been Travis or trick plays or nothing, um, which leads me to hopefully believe we'll run it a little bit more with Pacheco towards the goal line. Um, but I think any quarterback list, no matter what, real life, fantasy, whatever it is, Patrick Mahomes number one's never a bad answer. So I don't disagree with it.
And then Burrow at 3. That's obviously up 5 spots. When the dude's healthy, he's good. It's just, can they keep him healthy? Can they protect him? Can they protect him from himself essentially through training camp? That's where the injury happened last year. Um, yeah, if he's healthy, I do think he's a top 5 quarterback. Um, and I'll debate you on that all day, especially with the receivers that he has. I know the running game still kind of up in the air with what they're trying to do, but for fantasy purposes, I think having a healthy Burrow with the receiving core that he has, I know his receivers are going to be super pumped to have him back. Um, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, maybe. But yeah, and then Lamar's kind of a hit or miss. Like, are you going to get the running version of Lamar? Or are you going to get, you know, the bad decision playoff Lamar? I mean, I guess we can go, it's regular season, so we know he's probably going to be an MVP candidate. That's why I kind of kept him even, just because I wasn't sure what exactly we're going to get from Lamar. And then Jalen Hurts, I don't like him as a thrower. I think a lot of his stuff comes from the run. And I do think that they're going to get back to their old ways of running the football first and kind of doing smash mouth. I know it could be a toss up essentially with the offensive line being kind of reshaped and
Say,
reformed.
what's the tush push going to look like without kind of power driving in the middle of that? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
So that I still kept him in the top 5, just because I mean, he's still that borderline where he could be in that same area that he was. And Jordan Love, honestly, I could have probably put Jordan Love up. Just how he finished last season with so much swag, and his fantasy numbers were really good towards the end of the season. He seemed to have better chemistry with those younger receivers that Aaron Rodgers could never really quite figure out. Um, and I like the fact that they got Josh Jacobs too. That's going to take a little bit of pressure off, but it also opens up the swing game a little bit.
Yeah, that I still think he's a giant question mark. It's not one that I would draft comfortably.
I mean, what round would you? I mean, obviously quarterbacks are a little different, and your leagues are a little different on when quarterbacks get going.
Yeah, I mean,
Would he be your 6th quarterback off the board?
I honestly don't remember where I put him, but quarterbacks are hard for me. I never like to draft them too high, just because there's so many. Hell, I think I got Tua in like the 14th round last year, uh, and he ended up being top 10 for most of the year. But he's one that I don't know if he'd be my sixth person off the board or quarterback off the board. But if he was sitting there where I thought it was good value, I would take him. But what he did to end last year was massive, and I mean he deserves all the respect. He's still one of those that just makes you a little nervous because you know which half of the season last year was the real him. Um, you can go off the second half, which was his better one, but there's no reason that it wouldn't be the first half either. So um, I like the Packers, so I hope he balls out, and personally hope Aaron Rodgers sucks, just because it'd make it better. But I think he's deserving of the top 10, but he's the one that probably has the biggest question mark for me.
Yeah, so we're gonna pick a sleeper rookie towards the end of the show, but I'm gonna go ahead and do one from my top 10. I'm gonna go C.J. Stroud. I have him at 7. That's down one from what Yahoo has him. That's a question mark, just because you don't necessarily know what you're gonna get from him in year 2. They still have their OC, their offense coordinator's back. Um, get Stephon Diggs, so that's going to open it up more. Tank Dell should be back healthy, hopefully, for his sake. Joe Mixon's now the running back, so I think it's going to open it up a lot more for C.J. Stroud. So he's my sleeper, eventually ending up probably maybe top 3.
Yeah, that offense looks scary on paper. That's why you play the game. But um, yeah, the fact that your tree is Diggs and Dell and Collins, Schultz at tight end, you brought in Mixon. Yeah, that's he has the potential to be the number one fantasy quarterback. Um, I would never urge to reach for a quarterback, but if you're going to draft one a little bit ahead of the ADP, my money's on CJ Stroud this year.
Yeah, so that kind of rounds out my top 10 for the fantasy quarterbacks. We'll go ahead and let you read off your top 10.
Yep. So at 10, I have Brock Purdy. Uh, Talented offenses usually lead to fantasy points for quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, they sling it a lot. They no longer have a running back. Um, so let that sink in. Then I have Jordan Love at 8, Joe Burrow at 7, Lamar Jackson at 6, down 2 from where Yahoo and Corey had him. Then I had Jalen Hurts 5, down 3. Number 4 is Kyler Murray plus 3 from where Yahoo had him. CJ Stroud at number 3. Patrick Mahomes at 2, and Josh Allen at 1. Most of mine, I think the only one I agreed with Yahoo on was Josh Allen. The rest of it was all around. But I'll start with Brock Purdy at 10. Yahoo had him at 11, so not a huge stretch. We kind of know what he does in that offense now. He's not just a game manager. He goes out there and makes plays. And you have to think little dump downs to Debo and McCaffrey. Those go house. Those count
They
for
go.
Purdy.
Yep.
So when you have the playmakers he has, the run after catch guys that he has, and then just in Kyle Shanahan's offense, 10 might even be a little disrespectful, but I think he deserves to be in there just given the situation. Dak at 9, like I said, no running back. I think they're gonna their game plan is gonna be to throw a lot, and B, I think they're gonna have to throw a lot. So I expect at least big numbers, not necessarily wins, but big numbers from Dak and CD and company. Jordan Love at 8, kind of what I told you, not quite as high because it's still a question mark, but deserving of this spot. Joe Burrow at 7, I think as a Chiefs fan, I can't really have him any higher, but he does. He has the weapons around him, but then he also has Orlando Brown. That comes into effect. Lamar Jackson at 6, I think he actually ends up sliding even farther down, uh, but he has a track record of earning respect. I think his rushing numbers are going to be damn near gone. You don't bring in a guy like Derrick Henry to run with your quarterback. I'm not saying that he's not going to run. That would be stupid.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be crazy to think that he's going to start mounting up carries at any point. So his fantasy prospects are really on his arm, and that makes me
The
nervous.
swing side of that, though, Derrick Henry does open up the run game, stacks the box a little bit more.
But then you're still trusting Lamar as a passer.
You are, but then I'm starting to think of like the screen game to Derrick Henry coming into play.
Yeah,
And I know the Titans ran the screen really well with Henry.
but not enough. So if the Ravens actually do, that changes things because those go to quarterback numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I agree. It's a question mark. I think without his massive run upside, I couldn't quite move him up as much.
Right.
Jalen Hurts at 5. I'm kind of with you. He's going to put up decent numbers anyway because he doesn't hesitate to run. But he's also someone, he has good weapons, good playmakers, to where, may not think that he's going to be the highest scoring quarterback, but he might be the safest floor of any quarterback. Number 4, it's probably who I'm the biggest on, Kyler Murray. It comes out of nowhere, but he's one of the few Oklahoma players coming out that I've liked. So I've kind of followed him rather closely. And this is the first off season where you've heard Kyler Murray literally putting in a shit ton of work. To think of how good he's done with not necessarily digging in as much as he has is crazy, but to think of him putting in work and getting a guy like Marvin Harrison, Trey McTitties, whatever his real name was, at tight end developed last year. They drafted some offensive line.
I know we were up in the air on Jonathan Gannon as the head coach of the Cardinals, but just in watching their games last season, damn, they played hard for the guy.
It,
I mean, they had a couple washout games, but
it still wasn't
for
a lot of
then
talent.
yeah, but for the most part, they were competitive in every game, and that was with Kyler being out for a good chunk of the season too. So it was with Colt McCoy and
Clayton
Clayton
Tune,
Tune. I
there
think it
was
was,
others.
but yeah, I think Dobbs played a game for him too. Weird. Dobbs played for
Everyone.
yeah, everyone. But um, yeah, so I mean, I like their style. I guess it just depends on how they go because Kyler's not gonna. He doesn't have Cliff Kingsbury anymore, so it's not the spread you out quick hitters. Um, you're actually gonna, you're probably gonna hand the ball off. You're probably gonna run action out of it. And you got to hope that you can have someone other than Marvin Harrison and or Trey McBride on the other side.
Yeah, I think on the point with Gannon is you can almost chalk it up to a successful hire already because he's whatever he was selling, he got Kyler Murray to buy, uh, and that hasn't happened with anyone else in Kyler Murray's career before now. The dude's uber talented. I love watching his little legs run. And say what you want, but that dude throws a pretty football.
He does.
I'm huge on this guy, even though he's not huge. Um, he he's one that I really hope stays healthy. He is just a little guy, so some hits because he does scramble. He's usually smart about taking his 9 yard loss if he has to.
Smart about
Um,
getting down to his little baseball slide.
yeah, so if he stays healthy, I think this will be one of the best picks of the year. Uh, and I had CJ Stroud at 3. I kind of touched on it when we went over your list.
So you are high on him already.
Yeah, I am. It's hard for me to think with outside of the quarterback position, there may not be a more talented offense across the board than the Texans. He, I think he's kind of the first, like the number one non Josh and non Patrick. Um, I think Allen and Mahomes are in a league of their own. And so CJ Stroud, I think, is like that number one of the next people. But it wouldn't surprise me if even this year he catapults himself right in there with them or even above them. I mean, that that offense is loaded.
It really is.
A kind of a soft division.
Hmm.
So that's 6 games that I don't want to say are easy. Division games usually have a way of finding a way to be tough,
Yep.
but I don't know. I don't want to say I'm giddy on a guy because that sounds a little stupid, but CJ Stroud being the first quarterback taken shouldn't upset anybody.
Yeah, I think most drafts he was obviously right towards the back end, last couple rounds, kind of a just draft him just to draft him. And then a lot of people who did that were like, "Oh shit, we actually have something here." Because I mean, you knew it kind of right away the first couple weeks of the season that he was going to be the real deal. Again, it's still the sophomore thing that scares me. I think what he does have going for him is obviously the new weapons. Um, the same OC, Miko Ryans is still there.
Do you worry at all? I love the guy as a player, but he obviously runs his course in the locker rooms everywhere he's been now. Do you worry bringing a guy like Diggs in with the young quarterback? Do you think that, not saying right away, but say weeks 3 and 4, CJ Stroud is hooking up with Dell and Collins, and Diggs is not getting the target share that he usually likes?
Not a chance because he hasn't had a coach like Miko Ryans. Um, I think D'Amico shuts it down rather quickly. It's different from the other previous head coaches that he's had. He's had Mike Zimmer and then obviously McDermott, where D'Amico Ryan's just got done playing football not too long ago. So I mean, he's a player. Obviously, the players bought in immediately last year. I think he lets Diggs know, hey, you could be that missing piece, help guide us. So I think there's ways around it. I don't think it's going to be an issue. Um, I do think some of the best football is ahead for him. And I think just by having the supporting cast that he has around him, Collins, the Tank Dell.
Yeah, he hasn't been in a receiver core like this ever. I think it what was it the him and Thielen days.
Hmm.
No disrespect to Thielen, but this Texans receiving core is way better than that.
Yes.
Thielen was a touchdown machine, fantasy god during his heydays. We get it, uh, but I think you're right. Diggs, uh, he might be able to produce more on less. It's not going to be those 12 catches for 100 yards, but it could very well, like Tank Dell last year, 4 catches, 140 yards. So I think you might be right to where he may not get the amount that he wants target wise, but the production could be more. So, and that's another reason I'm high on Stroud.
And then even with and back to Diggs real quick, and we'll dive more into receivers in a couple weeks. But even with Diggs for Stroud, that opens up the short game a little bit more because you have Tank Dell and Collins who can open up and be the burners. Tank Dell obviously being the long threat. Nico could be the intermediate, and then here's Diggs. I don't Diggs obviously isn't going to burn anybody. So I mean, it could be quick release, keep protection to your quarterback. There's your safety blanket right there between him and Dalton Schultz, obviously.
Yeah, and that could get him the same share he's always used to. So, yeah, but I mean, everything we said is why I'm high on Stroud. I have Patrick Mahomes second, because if he's not first, then he can't be lower than second. Yeah, that just shows how much you shouldn't pay attention to sites and their ratings. You can feed me all the shit of where Patrick finished last. It doesn't matter. If there's a quarterback list, he belongs no lower than second. The only reason I put Josh at number one, uh, he is their offense. Um, Running, passing, hell, he's been a receiver. Um, he is their goal line back. It- he's a touchdown machine. Uh, there's no other way to put it. For fantasy, I still in real life want Patrick leading my team in any situation, but if it's fantasy, um, even though Josh Allen's kind of the opposite of everything we described, he doesn't have the greatest situation around him. But that kind of goes into like, kind of what I said about Dak. Everything's on him. The only difference is Josh is way more lethal as a runner. Um, I think you could see Lamar Jackson's coming out running season. I think you can see that from Allen this year. He's going to have to do it all. I'm not saying the Bills are going to be good. I don't think they're going to be winning a whole lot of games, which is going to keep the ball in Allen's hands even more. Um, I actually don't even think it's close fantasy wise from Josh Allen to Patrick Mahomes.
So I know you subtract Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs from the Bills. You had Keon Coleman,
Curtis
Curtis
Samuel.
Samuel, but you have two tight end ones, in my opinion. And Kincaid and Knox. I like James Cook as the running back around him. I mean, it's still a loss with losing Diggs and Gabe Davis, but I still think they have decent enough weapons around that I still think he'll be fine throwing the football, even if they have to go a lot of two tight ends or even put one of those guys out wide. uh, you know, like a Gronk or a Travis. I think they can do that. So I see no issues with Josh being number one. Like you said, I mean, that's kind of what's gotten him in trouble in games, but for fantasy purposes, it's kind of been what saves everybody.
Yep.
Um, with him getting those trash touchdowns, those rushing yards at the end, the scrambles. But he'll also kill you with the turnover, fumble, interception. Uh, but yeah, as far as that goes, I see nothing too wild. I do kind of like the Brock Purdy one. I think Brock with Kyle Shanahan has the potential to be a little higher. So I think 10's a good spot for him. I still love that offense. I still love everything about that offense, um, and everything to love about the regular season 49ers.
Yeah. Well, and as a Chiefs fan, I love postseason 49ers at this point. They've helped me see my team get 2 Super Bowls. But yeah, I agree. On my list, I can't really say Kyler Murray's one of my sleeper picks because I rank him as somebody who's going to ball out. But yeah, Brock Purdy at 10. That's for my list. I think that's in my top 10. That's who has the highest chance of uh, breaking out. I don't know if you say a top 10 can break out, but I think he has the chance to finish way higher than what I have him ranked.
Well, and you look at this list, and he's obviously not going to be one of the first few quarterbacks taken.
Nope.
So that changes your draft strategy up a little bit because now you can get your pieces. And yes, this is us talking fantasy football now. So if we ramble on for a few, welcome aboard. So you take him, you leave him at number 10. If that puts him at the 10th quarterback taken, you're not having to worry about him really in the first probably 7 or 8 rounds, that's how you build your team, right?
Yeah,
And we know everyone's league set up differently, format, scoring. Ours,
pretty
ours you
standard.
very standard. Um, the fact of the matter is, if you can wait and still get a good quarterback like Brock Purdy, or even Jared Goff, or some of the other ones. And we'll get to that here in a second. So yeah, that's how you build your fantasy team. You don't need to reach on the quarterbacks. Yeah, would it be cool to have Josh Allen? Yeah, but if you draft him in the first few rounds, now you're kind of setting yourself up, especially snake draft or however you do your draft. I mean, there's ways around it, and we know hopefully if you're listening, you're somewhat comprehensible of fantasy football. So yeah,
Yeah, and not to give away my strategy to anyone who does fantasy football with me, but there's like a 98% chance that I don't draft any of these top 10 quarterbacks that are listed for the simple fact that quarterbacks are starting to go too high. Um, there's a chance I get someone in the 9, 10, 11 range, given hopefully everyone else only drafts one quarterback. Um, but think about the quarterbacks we didn't list, or at least on mine. We don't have and Yahoo, and even towards the end of your list, Tua, Goff, Justin Herbert's not on this list. That's look huge question mark, but that's still talent.
yeah, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about that here after you're done.
But even the potential of Aaron Rodgers, like there are quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, hate him, love him. In Tampa, he put up some
Still a
numbers.
good fan, and he's a great supporting cast, good system.
Exactly. So like, there's quarterbacks not on this list um, who I'm more than happy to wait for to stack me elsewhere. Now, don't get me wrong. It was a couple years ago. It was fifth or sixth round. Came to my pick. Usually would never draft a quarterback this high. Uh, Patrick Mahomes was sitting there. I had already drafted Travis Kelce. I paired him because that was a value pick. We're not saying you can't draft a quarterback fourth, fifth, sixth round. Just make sure it's a value one. You're drafting someone who typically goes sooner, and you're not drafting someone in the sixth round like a Jordan Love who's going 12th round. Um, you can, and it could pay off, but you're looking for value. That's why I probably won't get any of these dudes in the top 10, um, but they would be nice to have for the right price. So, yeah, fantasy football, we could ramble on for days.
Yeah, so kind of echo off who's not on the top 10. So let's say these 10 quarterbacks are off the board. That's from your list, right? So I'm gonna throw 3 names at you: Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert. Who do you like and where? Because I still think
You have a
all
chance.
3 of those guys still might get taken earlier than the ADP shows. But
It just depends on your league and how people value things. To me, Herbert definitely goes undrafted, or if he gets drafted super late as an insurance policy. Let's say you draft one of the mobile quarterbacks or Anthony Richardson kind of high where they're going, and you kind of just want that safe floor bet. Uh, that's where I think those 3 names go. Um, I don't know if you're drafting any of them to be QB1. If I had to pick one that I like the most, it's Aaron Rodgers. Um, not a lot, uh, but he is still multiple time MVP. He's loaded with talent around him. Uh, if he stays healthy, there's no reason to believe he can't be that fringe QB1, high end QB2, which is acceptable to start if the rest of your roster is good. Um, so out of those 3, I just probably Rodgers. Stafford dies too much on the field for me to comfortably say I want him on my roster.
yeah, and unfortunately, for 2 of those 3 quarterbacks, they're obviously on the backside of their career. I don't know how much more Aaron Rodgers has. I don't know injury wise where Matt Stafford sits. Um, I do like Rodgers, but there's something about Herbert that I still like. I know they have 2 running backs, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, the Los Angeles Ravens now. But I still think with the style of offense that Harbaugh's going to want to run, I still think that gives him a chance. I know receivers are a huge question mark for Herbert. Um, yeah, I like Herbert, and I probably still would take kind of a flyer on him.
Can I? I'm not gonna use my rookie yet, uh, but one QB I want to make note of, just because I don't believe he's gonna go high. Um, Quarterbacks are pretty simple to replace too. There's a waiver wire for those usually. Uh, but quarterback that you all should be keeping an eye on come draft day is Will Levis. Um, Derek Henry's gone. He's going to get the chance. He showed signs last year. Now he has D Hop. Now he has Calvin Ridley. Uh, they signed Tony Pollard and still have Spears. They got a freakish athlete tight end and
Coro.
yeah, whatever it was. Uh, an okay offensive line.
They did draft one in the first round.
Yep. So not to give too much of my strategy away, but it's those types of quarterbacks that I look for, knowing that's really who's going to be available at a time I want to draft a quarterback. He's one of the ones. If he's had a track record before, he would be in our top 10 because he'd be one of those that we would list with surrounded with talent. Uh, there's just no track record, new staff, but he has talent around him. Uh, and drafting him late could make or break a fantasy season.
I got two names. I've been sitting here thinking about which one, so I'm going to say both of them. Is that cool?
Yeah, do what you gotta do. We make the rules.
That's right. First one's Baker Mayfield. Um, he was really good last year. I know he lost his OC. OC goes to Carolina, but he still has Godwin, Mike Evans, pretty okay run game. I think the run game could still get a little better, but I think the chemistry between him and Mike Evans last year, again, and we'll talk about this in a couple weeks about Mike Evans being underrated, highly
My
underrated.
biggest pet peeve.
But I like Baker Mayfield, so if you're sitting there late, and you're like shit, you need a quarterback. Baker's there, I would grab him. It's definitely got to be between the 12 to 14 area, though. Um, who knows? Your league, he may be higher than that. You may have a huge Baker Mayfield fan in your league. Who knows? Second name I'm going to give you Bryce Young. Hear me out.
No.
Hear me out.
Nope.
Greg Canales. Not Greg Canales.
We went to high school with him.
Well, if he listens,
Shout out.
if you're listening, Dave, Dave Canales. Baker Mayfield's OC last year. He worked with Russell Wilson in Seattle when Russ was doing really well. Okay, got Russ pretty decent. Okay, Russ was okay.
He got him good enough to trade rape the Broncos.
Moving on. Second, first year with Baker last year. Baker went out and had a pretty damn good year. I think he can do something. He has something to work with Bryce Young.
Well, and let's not overlook what they did. They spent millions, hundreds of millions, to protect Bryce. That was step one. So yeah, I mean, I think you're reaching deep into the bag of tricks on this, which for fantasy football is the shit I love. Uh, Anyone can sit here and say draft Josh Allen and you have a good quarterback. Well, no shit. Who are the ones who
And that's
has a chance to sneak up there?
That's why we gave you our top 10. Cool. Now we're getting into here's what we're thinking. So I like the millions that they spent on offensive line help. I still like their running backs. They're not gonna, we're not sitting there and asking them to go run for 1,200 yards, not even 1,000 yards.
Can they draft that Texas one?
They did.
And then still have Chuba?
Still have Chuba.
Nice.
But I also did Deontay Johnson. They acquired Deontay Johnson.
Jatavian
Sanders, which was a steal according to you.
Per me.
Per you. I wish you were really high on him when we were doing our prospect preview. So again, they're at least showing effort and wanting to help Bryce Young. And I think with a coach that actually cares a little bit, it's not that their previous coaches didn't, or the previous coach that they had last year didn't. It's just I don't think they put him in the best situations possible. I think Coach Canales is going to, hey, quick game. Let's run the quick game, right? We have receivers that can do the quick game. Deontay Johnson would be a perfect screen guy. Get him out, 3-yard curl or slant. We need to hand the ball off a little bit more. So I think he's going to put him in better situations. And I think him having prior work with successful quarterbacks is why I have not a high, but a higher-ish kind of thought on Bryce Young. Yeah, really deep and reaching on that one.
Yeah, well, since you gave two names, I'm going to give my second. Anyone who knows me is not going to be surprised by this. I say it every year.
Carson Wentz.
My boy. I say it every year. I think I'm going to be right at some point. Uh, I don't know what it is. If you're a Giants fan, I'm sorry, but I always love Daniel Jones going into every season. Um,
He's got a little chip on his shoulder this year too.
well, and that, and like, you don't give him nothing to throw to. You give nobody to block for him. I don't follow the Giants close enough, so I know they don't have Saquon anymore, but I know they got a really good receiver now.
Malik Neighbors.
I'd like to think they got some offensive linemen in there. Daniel Jones has talent. Brian Daboll's proven to be a good dude, offensive mind. Daniel Jones, whether he looks like it or not, is athletic as fuck. Um, there's there's so much talent there. One of these years, he's going to figure it out, and whether he wants to take the Geno Smith path and become a backup, humble himself, and then figure it out. But at some damn point, Daniel Jones is going to look like he belongs in the NFL. So that's literally my reason of why I'm just saying him again. Because at some point, I will be right.
Yeah, the first year with Dayball did really well. Injuries kind of flared up and happened, and then Tommy DeVito, the Vito hype train last year for what 2 or 3 weeks. Um, Not a huge fan of the Saquon Barkley loss, um, but you at least got Blink Neighbors, Darius Slayton still there. So no Darren Waller. He kind of just retired out of nowhere. He'll be a rapper. He wanted to be a rapper of all the things to do. He wanted to be a rapper. What a
Hey,
guy.
it's way well. I think it's way safer than football, but I guess it depends what party wants to rap.
Yeah. So I like that. I mean, that's kind of what this is. It's kind of a deep dig, deep dive, right? Like kind of
No,
just pull a rabbit out of your hat, kind
yeah,
of, especially in the late rounds of the fantasy draft.
yeah. These names we're saying now, these aren't ones where we're like draft over Dak Prescott, and you'll win your league.
Oh,
What we're saying is, if you're sitting there kind of late and you're looking for a quarterback, one of these has at least a little potential. Uh, or if there's a few on the board at a time where you still need another position, go with another position, knowing that the floor on some of these back end quarterbacks is pretty decent, and then the ones we're saying give you the potential to have a higher ceiling.
kind of like the
Uh,
diamond in the rough ones,
yeah, we're
kind of like your steal. Now you're gonna have steals at every position, but these are the quarterback ones.
we're not saying round 7 draft Will Levis. Like, you can, and if he balls out, you're going to look like a genius. But that's not what these guys are. These are more along the lines of, there's 0 running back drafts. There's been plenty of years where I go the 0 quarterback route and I draft one of these guys. That's what these guys are. We're not saying ignore the top 10, but we're just saying quarterback's probably the deepest position because you only need one. Technically 2 if you play it safe, but you only start 1 a week. Some leagues start 2, 3, 4 running backs, 2, 3, 4 receivers.
Two quarterbacks.
Yeah, there are 2 quarterback leagues, which in this case, the guys we're naming, yeah, draft these dudes quarterback 2,
Yeah.
unless you can get Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but the rest of your roster might suck. But
Right.
um, it's just kind of, we're not saying don't go out and draft Aiden O'Connell no matter the situation.
Oh Lord.
Like, there's quarterbacks we're not naming. A fringe one every year could still be Derek Carr. Um, I would still say don't draft him, but these other dudes are the ones who are either in the right position, right situation. The coaching staff's brought in have helped. Something that offers a little bit of hope for drafting a quarterback late.
Yeah. So we'll wrap it up with kind of a rookie sleeper. There are a ton of rookies, quarterbacks taken in the first round, first 12 picks, of course. Um, so I'm going to let you go first, and I'm going to have you give us your rookie sleeper quarterback.
Uh, I mean, we know who yours is going to be. I think just because everyone thinks Caleb Williams, I'm not one of them, and I really only said that to make it clear. Um, he is one of the ones that's in a hell of a situation, though. a lot of quarterbacks would like to be surrounded with that.
Absolutely.
Um, I think from a talent standpoint, staff standpoint, uh, I don't know if he can be a sleeper because he was drafted high, but I'm going Daniels for Washington. Um, I don't know. I really like him as a player to begin with. We're not sitting here talking about real life wins and losses. We're sitting here talking about fantasy. Um, you still think that Washington's in a position to be trailing in a lot of games, resulting in a lot of garbage time fantasy points. Uh, but also the fact that he's just good. Um, I think he's going to be rookie one quarterbacks.
Believe it or not, that's who I was going to take.
No, it wasn't.
It was. And here's why. I like Cliff Kingsbury as an OC. I think with him and the shaky offensive line that they have, I like the quick game. Um, Scary Terry running quick routes. You have, you know, Robinson to kind of swing it out to. Sorry, Siri. God dang. So I do like it for the simple fact of quick game. And then, yeah, I could have said Bo Nix, but
You wanted to.
what's the fun of that? It's not. I didn't. I still think he'll be a starter, but I don't want to put that pressure on him.
Oh well, since you're not saying Bo Nix, I'm switching mine to Bo Nix.
Oh,
I know I'm a Chiefs fan. It still doesn't mean I think Denver's going to win a lot of games. Um, but his strong suits coming out of college uh, really do translate to college decision making, accuracy, um, and it helps that he's coming into a situation where, as a proven head coach, has proven receivers. I'd say tight ends are lacking a little bit, but who cares? They got really good receivers, really good running back room. They're average to above average or good across the offensive line. Uh, Center could be shaky, TBD, but the rest is pretty solid. He has experience. He's already old as shit. Good situation, good talent. He may not have the most wins as a rookie quarterback. Um, Hell, he may not even be rookie one because Daniels probably still does take that. But I think for the fact that Bo Nix will be sitting on the waiver wire most of the year, unless we had Denver fans, he'll just keep him on the bench just in case or start him.
hmm.
Um, I think he has a chance to second or third ranked fantasy quarterback from a rookie standpoint. He's just in a good spot. Uh, he could be a draft bust, so this could just be all for nothing. But with what the talent he has and the talent he has around him, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to, honestly, 250 and 2 touchdowns a week, which in fantasy purpose, that's over 20 points a week. Yeah, I obviously hope he sucks, but
It,
he's in a good spot.
and I knew you were going to think I was going to say Bo Nix. That's why I came up with everything about Daniels that I was going to say because I wasn't going to pick Bo Nix. But I love hearing you say that. I really do. I don't know if it's going to be year one, but I mean, if it is, cool. And I'll dive more into Bo Nix in a few weeks when we drop our Chiefs and Broncos training camp review. That's going to wrap it up for this week. Make sure you find us on Apple. You can find us on Spotify. And now you can find us on iHeartRadio. Also look for us on Instagram at Shovick Sports. Follow us, like us on Facebook, and then make sure you rate and review us on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And if you need anything or want to hear us talk about anything, comment on our Instagram post. If you want to come on the show, DM us and we'll work something out. So until next week, when we drop top 10 running backs for fantasy football next week, we will talk to you guys then.